All right.
All right, guys.
Hello.
As we're awkwardly waiting for things, there we go. Now we're live.
Perfect. All right, let's do it. Jiho, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, let's go ahead and kick it off. Well, thank you everyone that has just dropped by. If you're watching this probably tomorrow or the day after, we appreciate that. Well, today we're gonna go over like UFC Jan versus Javalishvili, right? But more importantly, we're also going to go over this weekend's fight of UFC 286, headlined with Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. Before we do get into like the weeds of it all, we want to give a quick shout out to the Gobles. They are an outstanding community of like the UFC hobby in itself. Follow them on Instagram. We're gonna have to drop down a link after this show has premiered and etc. So make sure you give them a follow. A fantastic, fantastic testament of the community. So
Yeah, the
all right,
Gobles are honestly some of the best folks in the hobby.
yes, they are. Without a shadow of a doubt. All right, that's let's go ahead and kick it off talking about Jan versus Jazvili at last weekend's card. I think the fight that I want to talk about first is Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Jonathan Martinez. What are your thoughts about that? I think Turnit, you want to kick it off talking about the officiating.
Yeah, this seems to happen every week, and it's not a good look in my opinion. I mean, look, Martinez is a hell of a fighter. He put up a
Yes.
hell of a fight. Do I think he did enough to win? No. Saeed looked pretty damn good for most of the fight. I I, I don't know how all three judges were 10-9, I think, right? Um, it just doesn't make sense to me. But it goes back to sort of what we've talked about in the past with these decisions. Like if we go back to like Leach and we go back to some of the other close fights that we didn't agree with the officiating, I think and this is pure speculation, there's like an unwritten rule that if you do not finish, you can never be assured that the officiating is going to go the obvious way. And the UFC is going to tip the scale, maybe. I don't know what's going on, but it does. It happens way too often, I think. And in such a like, for example, like Gamrot got 10-8 that one round. Um, how is like what fight were they watching? Um, I just don't understand. And these guys, are professionals, and this is what they do. So it's not like these people don't know what they're looking at. Um, it's very strange. And even if you account for the fact that they're down there and we're not down there, right? And they see different angles and everything. Yeah, that makes sense. But how you could score it, all three judges, and not have a split decision at the least for the Saeed fight, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It hurt.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
hurt.
like it.
It hurt. I mean, what did he do? Like Martinez, I don't want to take anything away from the guy. I mean, he didn't get knocked out. He didn't get submitted, even though Said threw those crazy question mark kicks. Martinez neutralized it by taking him to the cage by clinching it, throwing knees and elbows, etc. But I mean, there's a number of fighters, and that's who thought that Saeed won. But let's also remind ourselves that Saeed is actually, I think this was his first time. It may not have been actually his first time, but in a long time, this was his like fight as a bantamweight, where he usually fights as a featherweight. So
Hmm. Yeah.
maybe that's why he gassed out early. That's why we didn't get to see the crazy like performance or fight of the nights that we're typically seeing with this Dagestani.
Yeah.
Well,
And even though he gassed out, you've got way more. He's got more strikes thrown
yeah,
and landed. He had more significant strikes thrown and landed. He had way more takedowns. I don't think Martinez even had one. And then a lot of people were like, "Oh well, Martinez had one submission attempt, sure, but Said had two." Um,
right.
I don't get it. I don't
Yeah.
get it at all, and I think it's just ridiculous. I don't like it. But I mean, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna cry about spilled milk. But
We're
well, what do
starting
you
to see
think?
that in non-title fights a lot too, where it used to be in title fights you have to beat the champ to be the champ. Now we're starting to see that with normal 3-round fights, and it is happening
To your
far too
point.
often. But Jiho, you made a good point. I think with him fighting at bantamweight, and you know how it is. I mean, we've all cut weight, wrestling, jujitsu.
Yeah.
It takes a lot out of you. And in normal Saeed fights, we see a lot of a lot of weird scramble positions, a lot of cool wrestling, a lot of good sambo, things like that. I mean, he's very good fighter. So didn't look like, in my opinion, it didn't look like the same Saeed, but I thought it was a great fight. I thought I'm with you guys. I thought he won that fight. I thought he won that fight, and I was a little disappointed by the decision, and I've seen that quite a bit in the last few cards, and it's disappointing, but at the same time, it's part of the scoring system, and it will incentivize fighters in the long run to finish fights. So
yeah, I think things were all over the place. Not only the scoring, but also like the betting odds of this fight. Remember that fight? What is it? Dumas versus Front, right? Dumas came in like negative 700 or something ridiculous, and Front took him out like this.
Oh,
like took him out.
Okay, sorry, this reminded me of like the many times fights end before it goes to decision, betting lines are still open, and the person that loses is like minus 800.
Yeah.
It's like, what? That's Vegas, baby.
What's happening anymore? Like, who are these people?
Yeah.
That was one of Jiho's locks too. I mean, Jiho, you were thinking that he was going to win. I mean, I did. A lot of people did. He was a huge.
I still think he won. I don't care what anyone says. Saeed won that fight. I don't know if we're talking about that still.
But... Oh, I was talking about Dumas, but
okay,
yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
with Saeed, yeah, slightly disappointing, but I mean, it is the way it is what it is. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I don't want to cry over that at all. I felt like Dumas could have taken it to him, but he met a grappler, and actually that brings us to our next point: Nikita Krylov versus Ryan Spann.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, we knew that Krylov exited their first bout. That was to actually be, the first fight that was supposed to have taken place about 2 weeks ago. But then Spann got taken out. He got emotional in that fight. What are your thoughts?
Man, honestly, I was shocked that it was such a high pace for two big guys of their stature. I mean, they're light heavyweights and they're fighting like they're well, it was a catchweight bout, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So
215.
Yeah, and to be that heavy and to be able to just go at that pace for however long, 3.5, 4 minutes, whatever it was. And it was crazy, dude. I did not expect that to happen at all. And you're right. Ryan Spann got overly emotional. I think that's really what gets him in most of his fights.
Right.
But Krylov definitely exploited that weakness, that emotional weakness that Ryan Spann typically shows in these fights. Ended up getting an extremely impressive triangle, right?
It was a triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the wrestler's sort of Achilles heel.
Yeah, 100%. It's an ego problem, I think.
Definitely. Turnit, any thoughts about that?
It does. I was impressed by Krylov. Ryan Spann, I think he's going to come back. I mean, he's training, like he said, he's never been training this hard before.
Right.
I hope that he continues down that path and doesn't get discouraged by this. Luckily, he didn't take too much damage, right? So it's a relatively quick round. I mean, I'm sure it felt longer, but yeah, Nikita Krylov impressed me a lot. He's back in the conversation now a little bit more. That's not a name I've heard in a while, so it's nice to see him. Yeah, and Jiho, I wanted to, if there's no other comments on that specific fight, I wanted to do one quick step back.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to talk about how fun the Assunção versus Grant fight was.
Good call on that fight.
I like Davey Grant because he's high volume. He's like a firecracker. We saw him in Vegas on the Jan versus Rakic fight night card. He's just a lot of fun. And, Rafael, it was a good mix of like competing styles. And then to see Grant finish him like that, reverse triangle? Is that right?
Yeah.
Inverted triangle, right.
That's like super rare, isn't it?
Yeah, the last person who pulled it off, I believe, was Imada, Japanese American, or not Hawaiian American, and he pulled it off while his opponent stood him up, and he was hanging upside down, and
That's so funny.
his legs choking him out.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was Carl Williams. It was his first fight in the UFC heavyweight against Brzeski, the Polish guy. First off, the whole cage was rattling when those guys were like scrambling and knocking each other. I think the cameraman got knocked down. It was pretty funny. But Carl impressed me with his output at heavyweight. That was pretty cool. So it's nice to see a new name in heavyweight and to put on a performance like that in his debut. That's exciting.
That guy, I mean, it felt like we were watching WWE with those guys. I mean, they were just Carl was tossing him like a lawn chair left and right.
Yeah. It's like, is the cage made out of rope?
Right, exactly. It's like, is it made out of Nerf? Because I don't know if we're going to be able to contain these throws.
Dude, I thought that for a second with Romanov and Volkov. I was like, even DC flinched. Like DC and the commentators flinched when they went over to that side of the cage because I thought they were going through that cage, dude. It was crazy. Those some big boys.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good segue. Unless, does anybody have any other comments on?
I think one last piece is that Goebbels, they pointed out Sven is sadly his own worst enemy, and I couldn't agree with you more there. I mean, he can only take himself as far as he'll let himself without if he can just have a better sense of discipline. I think better regimen, like what we've seen with Cody Garbrandt. I think as of late, but that's my.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Span is definitely his own worst enemy. I mean, back to the ego thing. Like you said, it's the wrestler's Achilles heel. It's just going to be there. It's a mental thing. I think in that case, maybe the only thing that can solve that is some type of sports psychologist or something, because he needs to learn how to relax in those positions where he's facing a high pace opponent like Krylov, because Krylov is going to go in guns a-blazing every fight.
Yeah.
And we saw that against Ozdemir.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. They went in, just banged it out. And that's just, I like those types of fights, but I mean, he needs to realize at a light heavyweight or being as heavy as he is, he's not going to be able to just go in there and do that at the highest level. But
let's go in and talk about Volkov and Romanov. What are your thoughts about that fight?
This is another humbling experience for me. So I was really sad to see this performance from Romanov. And during his camp and training and everything, he looked a lot leaner. He came in heavier than he was last time, which, I mean, look, if you're planning for that, fine. But the whole point, I thought the lesson from his last fight was that, hey, I gassed out. I got too confident. I got too cocky. I need to be ready to go to distance and, not just rely on just the one strategy. Right.
Right.
So I was disappointed to see him, like, when he didn't look that healthy. And I don't know if there was something going on. Maybe there's something we're not aware of, right? And we've talked about that before, where fighters maybe aren't ready for a fight. Maybe they have some health issues going on, an injury, but they don't disclose it because they still want the paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to speculate on that because that's not based on any facts that I'm aware of, right? But that is just something that I noticed right away. And then I know we talked a little bit about this during the fight, but it seemed like Romanov's plan was to just dominate in the first round,
right,
and get the opponent on the ground, kind of like what we saw with Tibura.
Right.
And obviously he went for that. It didn't work. I do think the fence grab by Volkov helped him to stay up a little bit. It wasn't huge, but I think it was enough to prevent him from falling over. And I think that completely demoralized Romanov, because Volkov is a gigantic human. And you mentioned that last time, Jiho. And after that, I could just see it in his eyes. Like he just felt broken. He brought nothing to it in the second round,
right?
Or first round, excuse me. But like because I think they stood them up, right? I think there was like was there a nut shot or something? I can't remember.
Was there? I don't recall.
I can't recall. I thought he said. Oh no. Okay. I think the ref did something where we kind of like parted them, or I don't know. There's like a little bit of a reprieve, but after that, it was just like it was all over. I'm disappointed because this is another prospect that I was big on. We saw this with Andre Muniz, another prospect from 22 product.
Yes. And
we saw that with Paul Craig, another prospect from 22. Sean Brady's another prospect from 22. So and Romanov up to this point like he did lose against Tabora, but it felt like he hadn't lost yet. And the reason I point that out is we've seen this now. There's no if we had an environment a year ago where everybody was buying cards for people that were undefeated, you can't really do that anymore. And Volkanovski lost, right? Izzy lost, Valentino lost, Amanda Nunes lost. Where are you going to go? Like you can't have this grand illusion that fighters are going to be undefeated forever, always. Even Islam lost early in his UFC career, right? So in some ways, I do think as bad as it is to see prospects lose for product or wax or whatever, I do think at the end of the day, for fans of the hobby and the sport, it gets them more acclimated to this reality that your favorite fighter is probably going to lose at some point, and that's not a good reason for you to stop liking them. And so, and that's kind of relevant for Jan. I don't think the way he lost to Merab takes anything away from Petr Yan. He's still a great fighter. And I know we're going to get into that in a second, but I want to let you guys speak to Volkov versus Romanov. So, Roll, what do you think?
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Roll?
Man, that one was surprising to me too. And I said it last week. I said that Romanov was probably going to run him over with his wrestling. We saw his failed attempts, and Jiho, you know more than most. Failed takedowns are some of the most energy consuming things that you can. I mean, failing a takedown is miserable. It doesn't feel good, and to do that over and over and over and over again, it hurts the mind. It hurts the body. It sucks. It's not a fun time, especially when that's really your only move against somebody like Volkov, who has really heavy hands and can stand with the rest. So I think that's really what broke his spirit. Like Turnit said, it broke his spirit at that point. And we saw him taking these really risky shots and these low ankle pick shots. And it's like, and nothing was working for him and he was getting desperate. So I think in that fight, I mean, it was a good fight overall, but Volkov he really did work on him. And back to your point, Turnit, he looked terribly unhealthy. When I saw him for the first time when he came into the cage, I'm like, he looks awful.
He looks sickly.
Like he did nothing but just. I mean, really, it looks like he hadn't been training or something. Like there's something.
But he was. It's so weird. He was.
Yeah, he looked.
I've been following him on Instagram Live, and just to kind of add one thing, he had 0 strikes out of 1 strike attempt, no significant strikes, obviously, and then 0 for 5 on takedowns.
Yeah, and he shot immediately for the takedown. I think that's what broke him immediately. He's like, okay, this game plan is not going to work any longer. Like, I'm going to keep trying these takedowns, but if it doesn't work, then my game is useless against him. And I think Romanov relies too much on his grappling.
I'm so disappointed because the fighter I saw the first round against Marcin Tybura is somebody who could be heavyweight champ potentially. If he could do that to a big boy like Tybura, but then it's like ever since then, that loss, it just broke him. And then this broke him even more. I hope he comes back stronger and gets a better, I don't know, training partner, better camp, whatever he needs to fix this. Because what I don't want to see is that like he kind of just falters out and peters out and we don't see him again. Because that it's rare to see big guys with that kind of talent. I think we're seeing it a little bit like Curtis Blades. I think you mentioned Jiho. We see him, with the ground game. Aspinall's got it, but if Johnny Bones is going to be up there for a while, like you have to, like you can't just be a striker. We saw that, right? So anyway, it's a little disappointing. What do you think, Joe?
I think what we saw was the contrast of what we expect to see in the higher, like the echelon with UFC fighters versus like someone who comes out of more like the regional circuit or one tier below, right? LFA is the king of the cages, if you will, right? Where they farm fighters for the UFC. Don't want to take anything away from Romanov at all. I mean, what he does probably works in more lower tier, right? But when you had the experience that Volkov demonstrated, it wasn't just his striking. It was how he knew how to control his distance and more importantly, the pace of the fight. And I felt like Romanov was just a one-trick pony. I'm going to double leg you and then take you down. for anybody to keep on executing double legs, that requires a lot of power, unless you're like Williams, who's just a freak of nature, right? Where that guy kept totally just throwing people around like if they were, he was ragdolling people. But yeah, I think Romanov definitely needs to look into his dietitian better, his strength and conditioning to improve his sort of like position in the heavyweight bracket or ladder rather. So those are my thoughts. Let's move on to speak of demoralizing to define it. Let's talk about that Piotr Jan versus Merab Javashvili fight.
I'm a big Peter Yan fan. I've
Same.
always liked him. I still like him. No disrespect to Petr Yan, but Merab impressed me with the Jose Aldo fight. I know it was kind of boring for a lot of different reasons and
Right.
one-dimensional, but it worked. Dude, this guy is a machine. I believe that's his nickname. And I was just phenomenally impressed from beginning to end. I got progressively more impressed as I watched Merab fight. And I know there's a lot of people on the internet are speculating about performance enhancers, because to see someone's pace that crazy, rounds 4 and 5, is nuts.
Right.
I'm not going to have any comment on that because I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in the field, but I was just impressed with the output. It was just insane. It was constant. And it's not like his takedown attempts, even though he set a record, were him being one-dimensional and that's all he was doing. He was striking as well and succeeding. And it was just like, I don't know, it was just so impressive. I don't know who else can take him right now at bantamweight.
Well, I mean, I feel as though that anybody who wrestles can neutralize his game, right? I'm not just taking anything away from Piotr Jan. I had him winning 60-40, right? Before the fight actually took place. And the way that Merab approached Piotr Jan versus Aldo isn't pretty intelligent, because he knew that Piotr Jan was going to take his time. He takes time in rounds 1 and 2 to devise a game plan right on the spot. But then with Jose Aldo, that guy goes will just start throwing down if he wants to from the very get-go. So the way that Merab was able to push the pace from the very get-go was something that I saw happening with Merab anyways from the beginning. But the way he was neutralized also Jose Aldo speaks to his sort of intelligence, if you will. But the type of fighter that I can take out Merab, because he just likes to shoot for takedowns and just have his striking complement that, is someone like Henry Cejudo, right? Henry Cejudo, he is an Olympian. He is obviously a 2 weight division champion. What I see here happening is something more comparable would be like Kamaru Usman versus Colby Covington. They both would have their wrestling neutralized, and they would just be striking the living hell out of each other. And I don't feel like Merab has those hands.
Gotcha. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Aljo Cejudo fight goes.
Yes.
Because if Cejudo wins, then very easily I think Merab should get the shot against him.
Yeah.
And that would be interesting. Now, I excuse me, I don't think Sean wants that smoke. I don't think they'll do that. I think they'll probably do like Sean versus Cheeto again or something, is my thinking. And then the other thing too, people are calling for like Umar versus Merab, but I don't want to see that right now. I think Umar has one more fight before that, before getting up to like the 1, 2, 3 spot. But that's just my thought around it.
Right. Rolk, your thoughts?
Yeah. I completely missed the ball on this one too. Honestly, I dropped the ball on this one. I thought that Piotr was going to really push the pace of this fight, but Merab pushed the pace in all 5 rounds. I mean, he really just outclassed him. I would totally like to see. I totally agree with you, Jiho. I think that Cejudo is probably the perfect fight for him. I think that if anyone in the bantamweight division has a good chance of beating Merab, it's definitely going to be Cejudo. And I think that he has all of the tools. I mean, he trains with DJ, who is one of the best ever. He puts together these game plans for other fighters as well as himself in the cage. I think he just has the best shot of beating Merab in this division. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Aljo in the division. especially because of his dominant win over Piotr. So it'd be nice to see Aljo, you know, fight somebody else in the division. I mean, I'm big on Corey Sandhagen as well. So I think that division has a lot of talent. I agree with you, Tiernan. I don't want to really see Umar fight Merab at this point. I think that there's a lot of other fights that can be had before they run that fight. But
right,
King Henry, basis dude, says in the chat. Yeah, dude, Henry. I'm gonna be a big fan of Henry just because I have a lot of respect for him as a fighter. I think that he has so many tools and he's put together so many. And I've said this over and over. His game plans. I mean, it's just he breaks fights apart like they're science, and I love that about him.
Yeah,
yeah. His videos are great.
Yeah.
I mean, he was training Moreno for a while, and then he helped out Figueiredo, where he actually took the fight against him or against his former sort of mentee, if you will, and Figueiredo beat him.
And that's another thing we have to consider now is him in that division because he's moving up to bantamweight. So it's another thing we have to consider now is Davison.
Yeah, that's true. I want to see Davison win his first fight when he comes. Has that been announced? Who he's fighting or no?
No, not
maybe
yet.
Imagine Davison versus Umar. To give him a good introduction into the bantamweight division.
They wouldn't do him dirty like that. They wouldn't do him dirty like that.
It's like an immediate title contention eliminator right there.
That'd be crazy. Hilarious, but I don't want to I think he would just need a setup fight, you know.
He needs one. He needs one.
Yeah,
he's earned it. He's earned it.
Agreed.
Right. That said,
I totally agree.
Do you guys want to move on to UFC 286 then?
Yeah.
Wow, what a stacked card. UFC
I'm down for that. I got
killing it right now.
They are. They're giving us so many treats. Like we just talked about a fight night that I think was a tremendous card. And now we've got this event in London and they always bring it. The first fight that interests me is Leron Murphy versus Gabriel Santos.
Yeah.
Murphy's another rookie out of 22. I'll be honest with you guys, I haven't done a lot of research on Murphy. I probably did a few months back, but he kind of dropped off my radar. But I want to see what you guys think.
Well, what are your thoughts?
He's been out for a while. I know he was injured there for a little bit, and he took a little bit of time off. But he's going to be one of those 22 prospects that we kind of keep an eye out for because I haven't done a ton of research on him myself. I've seen a few of his fights. He looks like the real deal, so I guess we'll see what happens with him. I'm really excited to see him back in the cage and fighting a guy like Gabriel Santos, who's 10-0. It'll be cool to see two undefeated opponents going against each other.
Right. I mean, I'm excited to see another Brit on the card that is also happens to be a rookie. I mean, he hasn't fought since 2021, known to be a striker. Joe's card stash is in the house.
Yeah, shout out to Joe's card stash.
Shout out Joe.
Yeah, make sure you guys follow him. He does a fantastic video series of unboxings, interviews, and whatever else. So make sure you follow him on YouTube and on Instagram. Leron Murphy, I'm looking forward to that fight. Unfortunately, originally it was scheduled to have been Leron versus Nathaniel, but that wasn't going to take place. Now we have, I would have much rather see that fight.
Yeah, I think anybody would. Nathaniel Wood is an absolute dog.
Such a cerebral fighter, but at the same time, gritty as all hell. So,
yeah, love it.
But the next fight that I'm excited to talk about with you guys is Mohamed Mokaev.
Yes.
What's that fight right now? Mohamed Mokaev. I'm getting across some lag. Mokaev versus Filo. Yeah. What are your thoughts there?
Mokaev is going to be one of the top rookie. This is my prediction. It's going to be one of the top rookie chases in 23. I mean, he's looked good. I think his last performance was probably less dominant than his team would have liked it to be. But yeah, he's impressed me.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Roll.
No, I agree. I think he's a pretty impressive fighter. As far as that flyweight, I think he's probably going to be in the top 10, of course. He's got the talent. He's got what it takes. I think we may see some upsets from Mokaev, in my opinion. I mean, I know he's super hyped. especially in the hobby at this point. A lot of people are talking about him and talking about getting some of his
Yeah.
cards. I know when his Panini instance dropped, a lot of people were talking about him. I'm excited to see some things from him, but I mean, there's a lot to prove there. He's got a lot of work to do. He's, I think, 9-0 in the UFC or 9-0 in MMA, in professional MMA. So, being so new, I think he has a lot of ground to keep at this point. There's a lot of people in the flyweight division that are hungry for that spot, including Pantoja. I know Jiho and I are a fan of Pantoja, so
we're such big fans.
Yeah, we'll see how he performs. I'm excited to see him fight again. That's for sure.
Yeah. Hey, and also like what I don't want to discount is the fact that as an amateur, he won an ungodly amount of fights.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. Like he didn't lose a single one, and it's TKOs, submissions, decisions. Like I mean, he's. I don't think he's as fresh as some of the other folks with similar records. But yeah, I mean, I think he needs a dominant performance though to really become like another darling in 23. It can't be like a grind out. You know what I mean?
Right. I hear you out on that. But you know what's interesting to see in the European circuit, especially with like people who are Russian, they tend to have a pretty extensive amateur background. And I'm glad to see that happening because it's just like with Thai fighters too. Before they turn professional in Muay Thai, they have dozens, if not hundreds of fights already under their belt. So that's pretty damn amazing to see. But I agree with you there, Muhammad. He is a hype right now, but the validity behind it, I mean, he has already demonstrated that he could take out people left and right, use his ground game effectively. I mean, he was an ADCC champ, I believe, in Britain, if I'm not mistaken. But Jafel isn't someone that we should sleep on either. He has hands. He's knocked out people before he submitted people. So I think this is a true test for him, especially within the flyweight. We're going to see a lot of action happen this upcoming Saturday.
For sure. Yeah. And he's got the hometown crowd going for him too, because he's British.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts about any of the other fights right before we get to Jack Shore, which, you know, I'm excited to talk about?
Yeah, I was just going there too. I was just thinking the same thing.
All right, let's get into it then. Jack Shore versus Amakwan Amirkhani. Who do we have winning?
I'm going to say Jack Shore.
Same. I like Jack.
I think Jack has a lot of tools. I think Jack is good standing up. I think Jack is good on the ground. I think the last fight he faced an extremely good opponent. I'm trying to think of who he fought last.
Ricky Simon.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, yeah, if you're looking at a guy
Simone, is it Simone?
Like Ricky Simone. Yeah, I think it's Ricky Simone. But regardless, an opponent like that, I mean, he's another killer. So I mean, look at Jack Shore though. He's one of those guys. Another huge 22 prospect. People were huge on him. But I think more so than a lot of the other rookies, I think he has more tools from what I've seen in his previous fight footage. So I'm really excited to see Jack Shore. And like Basis said, to see Jack Shore at 145 is really exciting to me. I think we're going to see a strong Jack Shore.
Yeah. And again, hometown crowd. This is another one of those times where a fighter was undefeated before his first loss, and then everybody all of a sudden forgot about him. And I think they're going to be crawling back now.
I mean, 16-0. One loss, guys.
Yeah, I know. Come on. Yeah. Against a good fighter.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we could actually see Jack Shore kill it and start getting back on that win streak that we were hoping to see with this fighter, because like Connor, this is the guy that we're trying to hope for, at least in the bantam, then now featherweight, I guess, to see now wreck it, right? We've seen a lot of people with hands, but it's pretty good. It's pretty damn cool to see people actually taking it to the clinch and now grappling. So, I mean, again, nothing to take away Amirkhani. He's kind of like off and on, if you will. So I feel like this was a fight just to build up the hype train of Jack Shore, or to restore him again.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, let's get right into the main card then. I mean,
this is awesome.
Gunnar Nelson and Rodriguez.
Oh, we can't start there.
Yeah, I
No,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
talk
Go ahead.
about it.
Start there.
Yeah, but I wanted to see D-Rod. I know that, you know, he may be 36, 37 right now, and he's older, but to see him go against Gunner, I kind of just want to see what happens. I know Gunner is
Me
a
too.
grappler here, but what are your thoughts, guys? I mean, turn it, roll.
I haven't been impressed by D-Rod, and maybe I'm just still salty from that Leech fight. Uh, but yeah, no, this will be interesting. Roll, what do you think? I don't really have an opinion one way or the other here.
Gunnar Nelson's always been one of those guys that I always had high regard for. I really like Gunnar Nelson as a fighter. I think that he's gritty, but he's also super coordinated with his jiu-jitsu. He uses real good ground control. He's always looking for a submission. He always wants to finish the fight. He fought guys like Gilbert Burns. I mean, if you look at some of his past fights, and he's just he's like the jiu-jitsu version of a meathead. The guy goes in there like you would think he's a wrestler more than anything because he goes in there headstrong, going forward, always trying to finish the fight. I love Gunnar Nelson. I couldn't like him more, and Basis knows that about me. I've been a big Gunnar Nelson fan for a while, so to see him fight somebody like Brian Barberina, that's gonna be a fantastic battle.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, what a fighter in Barbarena, right? But
Yeah,
anyway, were you a fan of Gunnar Nelson when he was training with Connor?
I was a Gunnar Nelson fan,
Mhm.
regardless of who he's training with. I think um, I wasn't even really aware that he was training with Connor. To tell you the truth,
Hmm.
I've been a fan of his. I'm trying to think of how long it's been. A long time. I mean, he's been in the UFC forever. He's definitely a UFC veteran.
Mm.
Right, right.
But yeah, I like him. Like I said, he's one of those guys that I just admire as a fighter, and I don't know why I like him. I just have a soft spot for old Gunny.
Yeah,
I'm
I
rooting
feel
for
like
him too.
yeah, Gunner's the cerebral like grappler here. He isn't one to
Mhm.
just lock horns automatically trying to shoot for takedowns per se. He knows how to actually implement the grappling game plan, unlike Dylan Dennis, who
I'm
was
like,
McGregor's latest BJJ instructor or
yeah.
mentor, right? So that's going to be loads of fun. Turnit, what are your thoughts about Barberena versus Nelson?
I I am siding with Nelson here, but
Hmm.
that's only because like it's just a feel. This is more of a toss up for me personally. They're pretty equal when it comes to like age, reach, etc. I haven't been following either of them that long, to be honest with you. It's just yeah, I'm gonna go with Gunnar Nelson here just on a whim.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna pick Barberena to win, even though I'm a Gunnar Nelson
Really?
fan. I feel as though this guy represents like wow, he. There's no quit in this guy. He
Yep.
fought Bobby Lawler to the point where
He
I was
did,
like, I
yeah.
don't know if I can actually trust this guy, but he TKO'd him. I mean, look, we know Robbie maybe past his prime, but and the punches that Barberena was throwing initially in the round one didn't look like they were like rabbit punches at best, maybe just like pillow
Yeah.
punches. But then he amped it up as like time went on, each minute passing by. He was throwing even more heat, more volume, even grabbing onto like making it of a tighter fist, if you will.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm kind of going with Barberena on this one.
I can't go with him
Fair enough.
because he beat Matt Brown in Columbus at the fight night I was at, and
Uh-huh.
I disagreed with that decision. So
Mm.
I like Matt
that's not
Brown
even
too, actually.
Yeah, Matt the Mortal Brown, where he almost killed Diego Sanchez with that one downward elbow.
Oh my god.
Remember that?
Yeah. Against the cage. I mean, I think he caught a kick. He caught like a push kick or some type of Spartan kick. He caught it and kind of pressed his leg up in the air and came against the cage and bop. I'm like, oh my! I thought he died. I was like, that's the end of
Right.
Diego.
We've never seen
Another
Diego so
legend down, man.
good.
And then he started training with what's his face, Josh, whatever his name is, and started being all crazy.
Yes.
uh, what is it,
That guy.
Josh Fabio or something like that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he deserves to be forgotten, unlike Bilal Muhammad. Let's forget about that name and remember
Hey, I'm
Bilal.
gonna go to He's doing a meet and greet in a week. I'm gonna try to go to
Oh, nice.
in Chicago. Yeah, I don't know if I'll make it because I might have to go out of town, but
That'll be cool. I didn't know about that, or else I maybe would have looked into it. Thanks for the heads up, Turnit. No, I'm just playing.
yep. Hey, I just found out today. He went live on Instagram.
No,
And I
I'm
was
messing
like,
around.
"Well, you're doing a meet and greet." I've got
Fun
some patch
fact.
cards I need him to sign.
I just looked it up. Gunnar Nelson has been in the UFC since 2012, so he's 11 years.
Yeah,
awesome.
Crazy.
Yeah, that factors into my decision making as well, unlike Barbarena per se. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what kind of Gunnar Nelson actually pops around.
If we get a Gunnar Nelson that looks anything like RDA looked in the fight against Barbarena, I think that it's going to be a tough fight for him.
Yes,
I agree.
Yes. Speaking of tough fights, Vettori versus Dolidze. Unless
Dude,
Kenny
this
has
is crazy. No, that one to me is very exciting.
something.
Am I the only one that I think this is going to be a huge slugfest.
Who has a better chin?
Yep.
This is going to be nuts.
Right.
It's a great way to start the card too, the main card.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Turnit? Come on, give us some of that.
I don't think it goes past round 2. I mean, just looking at, I'm just trying to like remember here 1 second. Looking at Vettori. Vettori is very emotional. I think he's got a lot to prove. He's just been so angry, and I don't know. I just see him as this like emotional, like very emotional, heated person who and I don't know if that does him any favors. I could see him getting knocked out by round 2 because Roman's pretty impressive as well. But I think this is a very exciting way to start the card.
That it is.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Man, I was totally taken aback by Roman's jiu-jitsu last fight.
Yes.
If we see that same Roman, I think that Vettori's in for a long night.
Yeah.
But Vettori is one of those guys who doesn't really have any specialty, in my opinion. He just is one of those guys that he's a specimen. He's a physical specimen. I mean, the guy looks like a bodybuilder. When he comes in, he's beefy, ready to go. Good fighter, sort of a Swiss Army knife, but not. He has no single trade that he specializes in. He's a decent wrestler, decent striker, but he leaves his hands down a lot of the time, and it gets him in trouble. If we look back at his fight with Whitaker, if we look back at his fights with Paulo Costa, I mean, he's been clipped quite a few times, and this isn't the guy to mess with. I think he's the real deal. I think Roman has fantastic jiu-jitsu. I mean, with what he did to remind me who he fought last.
He had he's got 3 knockouts within 2 rounds the last 3 fights. He knocked out Kyle Dawkins. He knocked out Phil Hawes in the first round. He knocked out Jack Hermanson, which is not easy to do in round 2. Wow.
Yeah, quite the resume. I mean, to knock out Phil Hawes too. I mean, he's a pretty durable dude. But I mean, his submission in the last fight, or his no, it was a TK or a knockout or TKO in the last fight. But how he set it up with his jiu-jitsu was phenomenal. His transitions were freaking phenomenal, dude.
It was like a minute in the round too.
Yeah, and it was almost like a calf slicer. It was like a calf slicer type position, and he got it from like a turtle position. So he came from the back, and did like basically a calf slicer sitting up, and I think he TKO'd him from that position, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact fight.
I think you're right. It was against Kyle Dawkins.
Yeah,
that was great.
And then just like took his back, just threw like hooks to the head.
Dude, textbook display is jiu-jitsu right there too. Textbook display.
Well, I don't know about this fight. I feel like it's gonna get either it's gonna be where Dolidze is gonna win by sub, or I feel like it's gonna be one of those fights that Vettori had against Jack Hermanson. Jack Hermanson and I'm kidding right now, Vettori. When they fought, they actually neutralized each other quite a bit because they didn't know whether it was going to happen on the floor or not. And we know that with Dolidze, he favors grappling more than he does with strikes. So what we see here, we know that Vettori has been training with Extreme Couture for a while. We know that in that camp that they emphasize a lot with striking and top position. So I'm hoping to see Dolidze pull it off, but that's only because I'm a fan of his with just how entertaining his fights are, period. But that's not to take away what Vittori can do as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think Vittori
Yeah.
needs this to stay in the conversation because he's
Yes.
kind of on a skid.
Yeah, especially with Roman's resume and being so new to the UFC. He hasn't been in the UFC long enough to really fight the top level guys. So I think when he makes it to that position to where he's fighting a guy like Marvin Vittori, I think the conversation is real when he beats Marvin Vittori. If he beats Marvin Vittori, I think he's up there with the best. He can start fighting the guys like, he can get into the Whitakers and the guys, Paulo Costa if he stays in the UFC. And yeah, I'm really excited for this one. This one's going to be a banger. This one's going to be an absolute banger, in my opinion. Probably, like you said, sort of a slugfest.
Do we see Roman cards in 23?
Yes, we've got to see Dolitzi. We've got to see Dolitzi. We've got to see Mohammed.
Yeah. I might be talking myself into buying 23 person.
Bassist is ahead of the curve. He's got I think, what is it, an out of 5, Roman Dolitzi?
Oh, from the instance?
Yeah, he's got the instant. I think he might have an out
he a
of
rookie
5
on there, bassist? I'm just curious because like this is one of those things where it's like the first time the card's going to be made, but he might not be a rookie.
Psyched to be able to catch the live. Y'all are killing.
Oh, Joe,
hey, appreciate it, Joe.
Appreciate you, Joe.
Hey,
hope all is well with you,
here,
brother. Hope all is well with you, my friend.
Throw us your thoughts too. Don't be shy about them.
Joe, we'll have to have you on here at some point.
Yeah, I hope you plan on being on here sometime soon, Joe's Card Stash, because we're a fan of your channel and we'd love to have you on here. At least I would. I can pretty much attest to the other guys.
I think Joe's probably saying, "Where's the invite, guys?"
Yeah.
Well,
you're always welcome. The door is open.
All right, let's go on to.
I'm very excited for this next one.
Yes, Jennifer Maia versus Casey O'Neill.
I love Casey O'Neill
from that injury. Yeah, what are your thoughts right here?
I see Casey taking it. She's young. She's got the reach. She impressed me in her last fight.
Mm-hmm.
I know she was fighting like a legend crowd favorite in Montefiore, but I just like Casey a lot. I don't know. She's just young talent that's rising up. I think she's gonna do fine. Yeah. What do you guys think? She's my pick though.
Laura, you want to go first?
Oh, you can go ahead. I think I went first last time. Go ahead.
All right, I appreciate that. I have a thicker neck anyway. So, anyways, with Casey O'Neill, I think that she's coming off a rehab. She went through some knee surgery, I believe, or some sort of surgery that was pretty massive, where it took her about 6 to 8 months to recover. And she has been training at Extreme Couture. I feel as though that's the right answer to Jennifer Maia. Jennifer Maia hasn't been consistent as of late.
Mm-hmm.
Her last one was against Moroz, who's a Ukrainian kickboxer. But other than that, her records have just been off and on. It's been flipping more than a pancake. So I feel that Casey O'Neill actually has more means to win in this fight because we know that she likes to grapple, but she's also young, hungry, and she's much more moldable as a fighter.
I agree.
Roll.
Sorry, guys. I minimized the Zoom. Yeah, I agree with that. I totally agree with that because I think Jennifer Maia has a lot of wins peppered into her record, but it's almost like win one, lose one, win one, lose one. And I think it's probably like somebody like Casey O'Neill. I think she's going to struggle with the youth. I think Casey O'Neill's got a lot of pep in her. I think she's young, hungry, energetic. I think she has, she's good at what she does. She's a tactician. I think she's going to go in there and probably end up taking this one, but I'm not taking anything away from Jennifer Maia. I think she's had some really good wins on her record, but yeah, Casey's pretty much got it all at this point. I think she's going to come in and do well at that division. Very well.
Right. And Joe, we agree with you there.
Yes, as long as she stays healthy.
Yeah, if she stays healthy, that's like the major if, right? And then let's talk about the fight. It's going to be, I feel like a coin flip per se, but I think it's something maybe one way more than the other. Gaethje versus Justin the Highlight Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev.
Yeah,
I don't think you could describe it any better. I think it's 100% a coin flip. Fiziev to me was like the fight against RDA, I thought
Mhm.
that was a really close fight, and I thought the momentum was shifting to RDA in the last round. I had it 2-2 going into round 5.
Okay.
And that showed me that there's a playbook potentially to beating Fiziev, and he got hit. Obviously, Justin has power behind his punches, but Justin also fights a little sloppy sometimes, and he stand.
Yeah.
There's some good commentary I saw earlier today that was talking about just how much like Justin has a really big wrestling background, but he doesn't use it. Why?
Hmm. Why are you asking us or?
Yeah, just it's more of like it's like rhetorical. Like I'm not sure why. I just don't. And I don't. We might not have an answer for it, but it could be the Michael
Right.
Chandler approach. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he uses it for anti-wrestling. He doesn't want to be taken down. He wants to keep it on his feet. He knows that he packs power both in his like legs and his arms, right? So his punches, obviously, we know them from. But what got him to the UFC, I feel more than his like crazy highlight reel finishes were his leg kicks and the way he sets them up. We don't know when he's going to strike. He's like a cobra because how limber his hips are. And with Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev, I feel like Fiziev has the edge on this one because,
100%.
like you mentioned, Gaethje gets kind of sloppy, right, with his strikes, whereas Fiziev, the head coach of Tiger Muay Thai, and you know that I'm a big fan of that gym, despite Piotr Leon's last loss, I feel like the Fiziev has that upper hand, and as
His
long as
kicks are
like
nasty.
his hooks, uppercuts are nasty. He's not known for like jabs and necessarily like crosses. He wants to get in there and fight dirty. I mean, his fight where he lost was against Mustafayev, I believe, and that guy he had range. He gave Fiziev time to play with, right? And Fiziev was like, okay, screw that. I'm going to work on that. And just like every time he's lost, he has come back even stronger, learning from his losses. But
Yeah, his output, like some of the output that Fiziev puts out with his kicks is crazy.
right, crazy amount of output.
This is one of the few exceptions where I'm actually going to disagree with you, Turnit, on this. I think that, respectfully, I think that I was actually more impressed by Fiziev's performance against a guy like RDA. I didn't expect him to go in there and run over RDA. Just knowing who RDA is as a person and as a fighter, I think that he did really well, in my opinion, on takedown defense because I thought that RDA was probably going to go in there. A lot of people probably thought that RDA was going to go in there and immediately try to take him down. And as many takedown attempts as RDA had in that fight, I would say that I probably did have it going 2-2 into the fifth. But his takedown defense was phenomenal, and I think that even if Gaethje does use his wrestling, because his wrestling is at such a high level, as we've seen from Gaethje, and he has all these skills on the ground, I think Fiziev's takedown defense was phenomenal against RDA. I thought it was. I was super impressed. I was super impressed, and then his striking, as we've seen against some of these other opponents, I think Fiziev has pretty good tools. I just think he has to sharpen what he's good at. If he is able to enhance his abilities to strike, I think that Fiziev is definitely one of the best in the division, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
he's heavy-handed, but he sort of like how Shavkat is. He kind of leaves his hands down a little bit, takes too many chances, gets cracked, and one of these times it's going to bite him in the ass. And that's
Yeah.
just my assessment on that. But uh, look, going forward, I think that Gaethje will probably put up a good fight against Fiziev. I just think Fiziev's probably going to have the sharper tools. I think he's just going to be more fresh, more loose as it goes into the later rounds, as opposed to how Gaethje gets. He tends to be more stiff when it comes to his cardio is incredible, but
Right.
he becomes more stiff. It almost feels like his body just fills up with blood, and he has these, like swollen limbs or something. I don't know how to describe it, but it seems like Gaethje may not slow down, but he gets more stiff in the later rounds. Whereas I think Fiziev is going to be able to handle that a little bit better.
So the
So we'll see.
Gobles, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The Gobles mentioned that we may see Gaethje win via surprise wrestling. So that's an interesting point that they brought
True.
up. Any thoughts about that comment?
I think it's possible. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I think
it's entirely possible.
it's possible because, yeah, I mean, this is one of those fights where whatever happens, it's going to have massive implications for the card market.
Right.
Because Gaethje's kind of on a skid a little bit, right? He still sells very well. A lot of fans, obviously, he's a high performer. He's been at the top for a while. But
Right.
Fiziev is one of the big rising rookies, another 22 rookie that is selling very, very well. So I see if like Fiziev wins dominantly, his cards can skyrocket even more.
Mhm.
Again, because people are kind of losing all these safe havens that they're trying to get into prospects.
Right.
But if Gaethje wins, I could see his card market improving severely because this is a huge fight for him as well, and could bounce him back in title contention conversations with a bunch of people. So, huge implications here, in my opinion.
Look, I don't know if Gaethje's. I don't know. He may surprise us with some with some wrestling, especially with trips. I know he likes to go for either doubles or trips, if you will. But I feel like Fiziev has enough in his arsenal, especially working with the Hickman brothers on the wrestling, to know when to clinch, especially with the background of Muay Thai, to take it on. But that's why I'm still rooting for Fiziev right now. But let's talk about the what is it? The movie in the making, I guess.
Yeah.
Rocky 3, Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. Who do you guys have winning?
Leon Edwards was
Tough.
losing every minute of that fight until the minute that mattered most.
Mm-hmm.
So I see Kamaru Usman winning dominantly and not getting too cocky again.
Mm.
Yeah.
And drop the mic there.
That's all I have. I mean, Leon didn't show me any. There's no playbook that he showed me that he has to beat Kamaru Usman except for a Hail Mary kick. And like you could say, like, you could tell me that Leon, that he practiced that, he wanted to set it up, it was all part of his game plan. That is not what I saw in Leon's eyes in that corner. Like, I saw a defeated human. Okay.
Gotcha. I mean, Roll, what are your thoughts there?
I sort of agree with that. I think that Usman's probably going to be more dominant almost in every aspect. I think he's a better overall striker. I think his wrestling is overall better, but we do have to take into account his knee injuries. With his physical ability to hang with Leon, we don't know how he's been training in these last however long it's been since their last fight. We really haven't heard a lot from Usman. I mean, really, we haven't heard anything in from the UFC or from his coaches or anything like that. At least I haven't heard much. And I think Usman's probably going to have a better skill set because he is one of the best, if not the best, at welterweight. He was up there for GOAT contention. People were thinking that he may be the greatest of all time. It's still a high possibility that he could be one of the greatest.
He almost beat Silva's win streak.
Yeah, and he's a phenomenal fighter. Everybody knows he's a great fighter. We do have to take into account, of course, and I may be a little biased here, but Gilbert Burns did drop him a couple times. So we'll see. As far as this fight goes, I think it's probably going to be an easier victory for Usman than we think. I think I think you're dead on when you said that Usman's going to have more tools and he's probably going to have a dominant victory. That's what I'm thinking, but we'll see what happens. I said the same thing in the first fight. I said he's probably going to win. I bought a few Leon cards just as a hedge, and they ended up paying off. But yeah, no, I'm excited to see this one. I'm not as excited about this one as I am on some of the other cards or other fights on the card, to be completely honest. But I think Usman's going to win.
There is the X factor of they're fighting in London, and when you're on home soil, I always say it makes a difference. I still feel like it makes a difference. So who knows?
Yeah.
Jiho, what do you think?
So I just want to first read off some of the comments. So Zach from Zach's Cards UFC said, "I got Leon by KO. The last fight, he gasped because of elevation, where Usman trains at elevation normally, which is a very fair point. Goebbels also had it where Leon's coach gave GOAT advice before that fateful round.
True.
I mean, how many clips have we seen put together? Amazing. I mean, just that in itself is like a motivational Rocky clip.
I have to wake up to that. I'm gonna change my alarm clock.
Right. So who do I have? I mean, let's also give a nod to the very fact that Leon took Usman's back. Usman said in a post interview that he never felt like he was in trouble, but the very fact that Leon can do that to Usman, that was interesting. I mean, we've seen Usman down by Kobe before, so I don't know. But overall, I feel like the better fighter is Usman, but who's gonna show up that night? I mean, I still have it towards Usman, but it's not necessarily who has the more skill set. I'm just wondering who hasn't let the psychology affect their performance, right? I'm talking about Muhammad, right? And if you look at the UFC record of those that lost their title and came back and won, the stats speak for themselves: 3-11, right? We know that GSP has done that before, but I mean, look at how many times like the light heavyweight title has been just going around outside of Jones, right? We had Shogun Hua, we had Forrest Griffin, we had Rashad Evans, we had Chuck Liddell.
That's fair.
So, you can only imagine how many more times it can be with the welterweight, but I just feel like Usman has more to win with. But Usman, I think you bring up a good point, Roll, is that his knees are on borrowed time. We know
100%.
in clips, man, he cannot run. He cannot use the treadmill because his coaches warned him against that because basically Henry Hoof doesn't want him to do so. He just swims. But even when you see him in training clips of sparring clips, he's using knee braces. So how long can we see Usman dominate? I don't know for how long, but at least for this fight, I still see Usman winning.
Gotcha.
Same.
Where do we? So I think we all agree that we're all leaning towards Usman. If he wins, how many more fights does he have at the UFC?
Probably 2.
Yeah. If he loses, does he retire?
Well, I don't think he should just automatically retire, though he is, I believe, 35, but he has a lot of mileage on him because he hasn't really ended his fights, and his fights typically are just like all-out wars.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking because of the knees and everything, right?
Right. But then the welterweight division is so full of monsters right now, and I don't know if they're primed to necessarily fight for the title outside of like all the much more like the old guard, if you will, like Beneil Dariush, not Beneil, but I'm sorry, Gilbert Burns. I can't wait for that guy to fight again.
Oh, I know. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. Goebel and I are getting the shakes. By the way, speaking of Goebel, good night, Goebel. Thank you for joining. It was good seeing you.
Good night. Thank you for joining. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same, Jiho. I think maybe 2 more fights left in the gas tank. But if you were to ask me again who I think wins this fight, I think all of the other welterweight contenders win this fight. Because no matter what happens, I think, Leon wins, then he has to face the best in the division. And there's a lot of hungry young guns out there that are gunning for that position.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not ready yet, right? Per se. I mean, I think Bilal still needs one more fight. Gilbert Burns is probably the only one that I think, but he already lost to Usman anyways. But I feel like he's still
but
bring the fight.
Let's say Leon wins, right? And he fights Gilbert Burns.
I have Gilbert on that one.
That's a fight. Yeah, that's totally a fight. I don't think we can discount Gilbert out of that conversation.
I agree with you on that one. And I want to see that. Colby needs to freaking fight, man.
Yeah, he does.
It's just I don't like this traffic jam.
Yeah.
It's Ngannou in the welterweight division.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
It is.
I don't like that. I don't like when fighters decide that they want to let their own egos take over the sport, because then it ruins it for the fans and the people that are paying good money to watch these fights. Champ Burns, I would love to see a strap around his waist more than I would like to see most things. Joe, believe me.
I think it's possible. I think it's very possible.
Yeah.
I don't care about the cards. I love him as a person, dude. I think he's a great dude, great fighter. I know we're talking about Usman and Leon, but it always has to go this way when I'm talking about
No,
Hogan.
no, it's look. There's a lot of there's implications, right? About that come out of this fight, and it's important to talk about that. And welterweight needs a shakeup, so regardless of what happens, I think it's going to shake things up.
Totally.
Cool. Any closing comments, guys?
What does it mean for the card market, right? Because we know that immaculate hype, it's died. I mean, maybe not to the full extent that a fad will actually die. And I mean, the cards are much more beautiful because I think people are prepping themselves for Prism 2023 to be released next month, especially for FOTL undercard outside of the regular hobby. Fun stuff. But I feel as though like Usman has already peaked where he needs to be. I don't think his cards will go that much further. I just don't think he was as charismatic per se with like the other greats, if you will.
He wasn't
a GSP or like a Mighty Mouse. We never deserved Mighty Mouse. God, I wish we had Mighty Mouse.
I know.
I know, man. It's a sad reminder of what could have been, right?
Yeah. For Fazeev, I see his stock rising more.
Yeah. Kamaru. Yeah, there's not a lot of people pining over Kamaru cards. And to me, it's kind of surprising. But it goes back to what we talked about in our earlier podcast episodes, which is first and foremost, performance is important, but then it's persona, charisma. And the thing is, like, he's active on social media. He dresses awesome in his own right. It's not my cup. I don't dress that way, and I never will. But he's got a style to him, he's got swag. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
You know what I think it is? I don't mean to take anything away from your role, but this is my thought about the reason why that Usman never became like this apex sort of character, if you will. The reason why is that we had a lot of casual fans dropping in while Kamada was doing work, right? And they believed in the Marty fake newsman, a Marty snoozman, and whatever else sort of being thrown his way. And yet his sort of rebuttal wasn't like to brush it off like GSP would have. It was much more like, oh, let me try to trash talk too. And Colby and Kamada just should keep their mouths shut. I know that they're trying to sell on their personalities and whatever, but Kamada couldn't fire back anything witty like Chael Sonnen. He couldn't.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's why a lot of people just are dismissing Kamada, despite. I mean, look at his record, 20-2. That's amazing. 20-2.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It is incredible. Yeah. But yeah, to your point, Jiho, I think if he loses, the market will tank further for Usman. It's not bad. It's just not great. But him winning isn't going to move the needle, in my opinion, because it's like it's already baked into his prices anyway.
Right.
So, yeah. But I think if Fiziev wins, though, that's going to skyrocket him even more. The obvious thing that people are going to talk about is him fighting Islam, I think.
Yeah.
That'll come up, right? And who knows? I don't know. I feel like the winner of Beneil and Charles is probably going to be the one that fights him next. But Fiziev will then, for the next calendar year, probably be in that conversation. And there's just not a lot of cards of him out there. So I feel like it'll just spike even more. But yeah, exciting card in general. And I love to see the crowd in London. They're crazy.
Yeah, they are.
I'm expecting to see a lot of patty shots. They're gonna pan to him a lot.
Probably gonna be a lot of patty wigs out there too.
Oh yeah. I love that. I love it. I like it. It's fine.
That's like some 70s porn star kind of shit. But anyways, what are your thoughts?
As far as the implications on the card market, as far like with Usman and all that.
Yeah, and just your final thoughts.
As far as Usman cards, I think we've kind of already seen them hit the floor at this point. So there's not a whole lot of movement that's probably going to happen. Like Turnit said, there's a lot baked into his cards. As far as if he wins this fight or loses this fight, I really don't see a lot of movement. And I just think that's because we already kind of know what to expect from Usman. So with Fiziev, 100%. If he wins this fight, it's a huge fight for him. If he wins against Gaethje, I do see title contention in his near future. I think that he's going to be one of the top guys in the division. Uh, I just have a weird gut feeling and almost a bad feeling that even if Benil beats Oliveira, I think they're gonna ring him. They're gonna ring him
No, they
dry, and they're
can't.
gonna make.
No, I would hate them so much for that.
I just have this horrible gut feeling because they've done it so many times to Benil. I feel like where they're gonna make him fight Fazeev to like earn the spot to fight Islam or something weird.
Wait,
And
how many more people does he have to be?
that's what I'm saying. I just have this weird gut feeling, and it makes me sick.
Yeah.
Fazeev has actually bowed down, like not bowed down, but bowed for the opportunity to actually fight for that lightweight title and let Benil actually fight because Fazeev
He said that?
Yeah, he said that on
That's
a
amazing.
recent interview or post, I forget.
It is
But
incredible.
it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago where it's like he deserves it. He's been fighting for a while.
All
Why
right.
not have it?
Okay, I'm about to go dig up some of my nicer Fazeev cards and take them out of the Turnit pack stack. I'm gonna because you said that.
Right.
That is I love
Yeah.
that. That's like some Yuri stuff. It's like the code, the ninja code.
Yeah, it's pure sportsmanship.
Yeah.
It's like you've earned this. I know how hard you've worked for this. Your time is, also limited because Benil's not getting any younger. I think he's what is he, late 30s?
Yeah, he's not getting younger.
No. He's old. He's older, yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's his time, dude. I mean, it's either gonna happen or it's not for Benil, and I just want to see it happen so bad. And maybe I'm biased a little bit because I like Benil. I think he's a good dude. I think he's a good fighter. I love watching him fight because of his pure jiu-jitsu, his amazing jiu-jitsu, incredible transitions. The guy just does everything. I like that type of fighter. I like to see scrambles. I love that. I think it's just there's an art to it that I may not have that same ability. I know, Jiho, you've probably seen, these jiu-jitsu and grappling matches where you see these guys just go back and forth and back and forth. And it's just so interesting to see it's a chess match.
right.
And Benil always puts on a good show. He's always putting on a chess match. And for guys like you and I that are really deep in immersed into grappling, it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, it is fun watching him and Bilal fight. Not Bilal, I'm sorry, Benil and Burns fight. Those guys are a testament to what jiu-jitsu can actually bring to the table for MMA.
Yeah.
Bilal still did Z as well. So yeah, he's a solid dude. Yeah. Oh, I'm actually agreeing with you, Turnit.
Oh, he's a good.
Anyways,
That's awesome.
yeah,
He's a good dude.
I think that about wraps up our thoughts for this podcast of UFC 286 predictions, along with Yana versus Merab reaction. So I think we're gonna call it a night. Thank you for tuning in. It's been loads of fun. Thank you, Zax. Thank you, obviously, again, Global, for giving us a quick shout out on your Instagram stories and just all around support when you're watching this on the rewind, along with Joe's Card Stash. Joe's, we got to work with you soon. We just can't get enough of your content and just even your personality and what you bring to the table for the hobby. So with that said, I think we're going to end it right here.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye, guys. Thank you for
Enjoy
joining.
Saturday, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers.